We will be #1 in the world again!
Criticism, in most cases, is the idea of a valid argument that, depending on the subject, may be an issue. Especially in the world today. When it came to The Long Walk, I didn't think it would be a tale of emotion, tragedy, self-regret, and redemption. The simple review upon release should have been good enough. Kinda like Sinners, I didn't think a second analysis was needed. And in a similar vein, the movie was immediately given its props as one of the greatest Stephen King adaptations, and at the very least, top 5 movies this year. At least that should have been the case, but apparently, people have issues. Based on the first novel Stephen King ever wrote, not published, that was Carrie. I know how bold of a statement this is, but what we have here is a rare example of a movie that's kinda perfect. Which is odd. I don't even consider Sinners to be a perfect movie, although I do prefer it. Maybe a topic for another day. And if you don't know, the premise here, set in the 1970s dystopian society, an annual walking marathon sees 50 boys competing, primarily out of desperation, and the one who keeps, you guessed it, walking the longest receives any single thing they desire, along with a sizable cash prize. To the losers,
death.
I'm not gonna go into every detail that makes this movie amazing. I did that back when it came out. The point here are the list of things wrong with it because they don't make any sense. That includes the shocking ending that, believe it or not, you're actually wrong about. I don't know why these criticisms exist. Maybe because the reviews were so good, there is a mentality to find things wrong with it. Kind of like an IGN review of a game that isn't high profile. It does, in a way, make sense. I compile this information from reviews on YouTube. I don't want to accuse anybody, but to get said views saying the same thing doesn't lead to a clickbait title. Potentially not on purpose, just trying to find something to criticize. Primarily, not the whole movie. I don't mind that, I don't need perfection, like some people seem to obsess over, but to literally say the movie is bad, or just boring, a negative review, it's your opinion, but it's a fundamental misunderstanding of good writing. I think calling the movie minimalistic is a definite red flag, as you don't know what you're talking about, because even if you have other issues, calling a movie about a walking marathon too simple is beyond backwards. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of walking. That's literally the title. I'd assume the issues come down to the characters and what they think is not enough. And to that I say, did you watch the movie? Did you pay any attention? The 6 individuals who inevitably last the longest don't just have distinctive traits that are apparent immediately and develop as the movie goes on, but I can assure you not one of them has an unsatisfying conclusion. I want to hold off on the 2 leads because that's a whole nother argument, but the guy who's probably easiest to deem as not interesting and he just needs to be there, Gary Barkovich, or as they may say, the token asshole, which is a reasonable assumption he very early on gets somebody killed in an unjustifiable manner.
You're saying your mama names you fucking right?
Yeah.
Oh, your mom must have failed with the old coat hanger thing and she must have just had to take it out on you with some...
To be fair, his name was Rank, but what you have to pay attention to is his reaction. Yeah, at first it's only one of us gets to live anyway, so what does it matter? You think he'd just be a sadistic antagonist, but upon being called out as a killer and mainly being shunned, you can tell it's not just going that way.
Why don't you kiss my ass, killer?
Hey, don't fucking say that shit, man.
Obviously, he's the insecure individual, acting that way as a result, but his transition to defensive, denying that he did anything wrong, makes a lot of sense because it's never taken too far. Got somebody killed, but potentially not on purpose. He was gonna likely die anyway. And most of the time throughout the movie is not really being a dick, it's being insecure, clearly regretting what he did, and at no point is anything said to take you out of it due to being irrational. It's how somebody in that situation would probably act, and when it comes to a head of all the characters who go out, it's one of the most memorable. Like the book, he loses and commits suicide, but before he does, he begs to be forgiven, to be accepted into their group, even though he knows in a few minutes it's not gonna matter. One of the many characters to come full circle, wanting something they never had, clearly the reason for his behavior. And upon finally having that, or at least thinking he does, well, you know what happens. I say thinking because it isn't exactly clear if they accepted him, giving it a dark undertone, but I don't see how the mandatory unlikable character could have a better arc than this. It's not the deepest one, nor is it the saddest, but he is the guy who said some really bad things that got somebody killed. So what they did is real impressive for what it is. They could have so easily had him be a complete dick, say or commit one single nice deed, and then act like his death is the saddest thing since the Acolyte cancellation. I'm not saying it's a legendary performance, but more than what you usually get out of that character archetype. I'd probably say the next to go are a bit less fascinating, but only because they have easier roles to play. Colin Parker spends a lot of the movie not speaking, being the primary loner, but going back to Barkovich intentionally antagonizing Rank, leading to his death, he's by no means okay with it. I guess because he looks tough, he assumed he would be. That's another real good character-building moment. And it impacts what I've been saying about Barkovich and realizing his behavior isn't okay, and it sets up Parker to be this unique lone wolf individual, who happily jumps in to say, fuck the long walk.
Fuck the long walk! Hell yeah, Colin!
Fuck the Major!
He's one of the few people who attempt an escape, which is more like suicide. In this case, I don't think escaping was the idea, more so going out and taking somebody with him. In the end, that was successful, and even though it's intended if you pull a stunt like this, you don't get executed, instead left to bleed out to set an example, I think him saying no to that and ending it on his own is a perfect way to go out. It kind of reminds me of how this movie does such a good job keeping you immersed, by having a system that always gives them their warnings, even if it's clearly over. When somebody's legs are gone, they still give them the full time. It's kind of like Demolition Man, when it never forgets to say,
"You are fined 1 credit for a violation of the verbal morality standard."
And when you think about it, that's a big deal. It's commonly overlooked. Art is probably the least interesting just by default, making it to the top 4, finally deciding to sit down and give up over an internal hemorrhage. It's another heartfelt, emotional ending, but it's going to be slightly overshadowed given it's this movie. You could argue he's very similar to McVrie's, only not as relevant, but like anybody else, his final scene is handled beautifully. These last two are a bit less notable overall, but then you have Billy Stebbins, who had the extremely bad luck of being sick, but still making top 3. He spends most of the movie on the less friendly side, not outright unlikable like Barkovich, but then you find out he's one of the Major's bastard sons. It's somewhat hinted at because he knows so much about the long walk. Again, attention to detail. They took the time to foreshadow this. So when you find out he was going to wish to be accepted as one of his sons, seeing him come this close is one of the movie's most devastating scenes. It's really something how they keep one-upping those. That's what good writing is. And similar to how war is exciting until you get there, the movie has a way of slowly darkening its tone as it goes on. It's not just the six either. Hank Olson has a real entertaining, overly confident attitude, but as we know, that's not gonna last. In fact, it eventually shows off what happens if you go for one of their guns. It's the whole example thing. And the way he cries out yelling, "I did it wrong," is another full circle ending, because that's the way he was.
I did it wrong!
He thought he had the whole thing figured out, that he couldn't lose. It wasn't stated to death, but it was his mindset, so as a drawn-out scene, realizing he messed up is probably the most agonizing death in this. Especially because we don't see him die, we just hear him yelling, emphasizing the system at hand, and if that wasn't bad enough, we find out he was married. The only contestant to be married. It just goes to show the desperate nature. It's heavily implied that almost everybody tries to compete, and even though it's almost guaranteed death, that's the society they live in. I don't get how anybody can say it's a thinly drawn premise. I mean, yeah, it doesn't completely make sense, but what do you want them to do? Minimalistic, maybe, but when you have characters this well thought out, this different in tone, well, that's how you make minimalism work. It's not like one of those ambient 9 Inch Nails albums that say, I'll do what I want, fuck the fans. And even if they don't cut away to showcase their backstories, that doesn't mean they're underdeveloped. Because that was a complaint too, with only Garrity having a proper cutaway to show something off. Again, I'll get back to that. But given the nature of the movie, I kinda wish they didn't. Everybody is developed, the asshole who has no friends, the loner who is deeply homesick. To say it isn't done to an immaculate extent is baffling to me. So easily could all of them just been one note, expected you'd automatically be sad when they died because the plot says so. Instead, they made them relatable. It's not a Chris Stunkman audience. I suppose if you really wanted to be petty, you could say the majority of the 50 don't do anything. I've never heard that said, but it would be something. I have heard it said the Major, Mark Hamill, the only notable actor, is too cartoonish. I guess you could say that, but he's not on screen enough to matter. It's just nitpicking. To those who say it doesn't entertain the audience, that's ridiculous. It's constantly increasing the tone, the deaths get more and more devastating, and when it comes to movies that primarily have you watching one thing the whole time, this development is really all you need, and it couldn't have been done better. One thing that could have been done debatably better, it's probably the most divisive thing in the movie, you know what it is? The ending. The ending when McVrees tries to forfeit, but Garrity insists that he doesn't, then he forfeits, leading to the baffling conclusion in which he wishes for a carbine and shoots the Major. So many questions. Why would he do this? He supposedly wanted to help people. How does he just walk away? Clearly that makes no sense. And to understand why this ending actually works, we need to look at the two leads. On the face of it, they may seem like opposites, but given we find out Garrity actually wants to wish for the aforementioned carbine to shoot the Major, we then see how different they are. This is because he personally executed his father for not submitting, and he wants revenge, even if he knows it means his death. So, in theory, given McVrees wants to use the money to help people, potentially end the long walk, or at least allow two people to win, why would he make the decision he inevitably makes? Even though it's hinted at, if you win, you may get away with anything, that's obviously not the case, because they do point their guns at him, so I can see why the ending may seem like nothing but shock value. However, it does actually work, and the reasoning comes down to their development. Like I said, they do have opposing thinking as to convince him that revenge is not the answer. It eventually happens when Garrity almost gets eliminated, embracing his mother. Once again, a real good scene, leading to the conclusion that he should have just stayed in the car and not thrown away everything for money. On top of that, we learn about McVrees' past, having nothing, losing both his parents, nobody caring about him, almost being killed for messing with the wrong person, and the conclusion is he finds the best in everything, even if it seems hopeless. Let's face it, hopeless defines most of this movie, many examples of that, and the end result is realizing revenge won't change anything, even if he somehow got away with it.
Your wish means nothing if you don't believe in that family over there. If you don't believe they're worth being saved, you may as well sit down right now and let them riddle you with bullets, because vengeance, Ray, vengeance is not enough.
So all that considered, it makes sense why McVrees would just sit there and let Garrity have the win, for his mother, for his future, because he's satisfied with him giving up on revenge. That would have been the closest thing to a happy ending, but unlike the book, that's not the ending. It was beyond unexpected when Garrity immediately lost on purpose, but when you listen to what he says, it actually makes perfect sense.
I can't see it, but you can. That's why I love you.
This is an extremely important line that if you don't like the movie, I'm gonna assume you missed. Not only does it clarify that he let himself lose because he can't be the person McVree is, that he doesn't deserve it like he does, but it also puts forth the agonizing realization that it doesn't always work out. Even though we put so much effort into getting through, it wasn't enough. So despite his sacrifice and what he did so McVrees could potentially change the world, I can kind of see why he doesn't. Just think about it. Garrett saw his father executed, entered this death contest mainly for revenge, potentially leaving his mom behind, symbolizing what his dad did to him, and the end result is him dying the same way by the same person, primarily because he didn't think he was worth it, because he thought McReeves deserved it more, and what I see this is the death of what he considered good. All of his efforts in vain, him dying for a very negative reason, so basically he can't see the good anymore. The major who killed his father also killed his son, so by doing so, the good is extinguished, it's dead, and what he fought for was in vain.
See that? That's a family, and they love each other. We can't get mad at them for being conditioned to think that this is okay when we're the fucking same.
The ending is not a cop-out, it's not trying to be shocking or even overly dark, it's symbolizing the idea of complete desolation, complete and utter despair, which is kind of the way things are. Yeah, I get he could have won, taking the money back to his mom, happy ending, but it wouldn't have had the same impact. This may seem overly dark the way it is, but when you really put it into consideration, it makes perfect sense. In the end, no, it isn't satisfying. It's not a happy ending by any means, but it's an ending that fits a movie like The Long Walk. That includes him continuing to walk down the empty road, even though he just got through walking. Did recently say, been walking all my life. And I know there is the other big dilemma that he somehow didn't get shot himself, and that's a real fucking stupid dilemma. Yes, it's very unlikely they let him get away with it, especially because after he shoots him, there's clearly nobody there, nobody's reacting, and given the street is clearly empty, the odds are they did shoot him, and he's walking to the afterlife. I can't guarantee that, maybe it's up for interpretation, but I think the image of him continuing to walk is a lot more effective than him being shot dead. It's just a stupid argument. Obviously, you couldn't get away with that. If you could, they'd probably explain it. There was the mention earlier that the winner could maybe do whatever they wanted, even if it's treason.
They'll fucking kill you.
You don't know that shit. I'll be the winner. That's uncharted territory.
Like I said, they pointed the guns at him, so that's unlikely. Either way, it's not an issue with the movie. It's no reason to lower the rating. If you have to fill in a few gaps, so what? I'm going to assume most Stephen King fans have read or seen The Shining. Not the most easy to digest ending, so the only thing you could even remotely say against this movie is, it's not the most fun rewatch. Upon seeing it a few times now, I don't really need to see it ever again. Once you know what happens, it does lose a bit of the impact, not to mention a lot of depressing stuff. I'm usually okay with that. But the first time watching it and the reviews that followed, how they can not give it a score in the 90s, say it's overrated, say it's boring, not call it a masterpiece, is insane to me. I'm not demanding you have the opinion I have. I get how the ending could be questionable for some people. If that's the reasoning, I guess that's one thing. But to complain about characters not having backstories that are shown, or just not that interesting, say the movie isn't entertaining, that's just not true, is a complete misunderstanding of what good writing is. I don't see that many new movies that I absolutely love. Others this year include Begonia and obviously Sinners. But like the latter, I thought this would without question be a movie you couldn't dislike. Stephen King may be known for horror and some strong opinions, but like his other non-horror novels that became very big movies, I could almost slip this right in.
He's nuts! He's really out of his head!
I'm not saying it's that quality, but it is comparable, and considering it's not very good box office, it really goes to show how bad things have gotten. I was really hoping the reviews could lead to something like Weapons, proving good storytelling could still turn out a good profit, but unless something is hyped to literal death, only established franchises can make real money. What I'm really trying to say here is if you haven't seen it, make sure you do immediately. It's a real good fucking movie. And also hit the like button, subscribe if you enjoyed, share the video if possible, and hit the bell to get notified, because notifications are also a broken system. I'm the analyst, and remember kids, you kinda just gotta see the movies to know anything. It's reached that now.